Hello friends, uh, we are here with Somesh Upadhyay, All India rank 34 in this year's exam, 2017 result. I had asked you to post your questions on the Facebook page, so I've got all of that. Thanks for that. I've picked up many of these questions, so we'll try and answer that. And before we begin, I must congratulate Somesh. Congratulations. It's always a pleasure to sit next to my own student and take the pride that I taught him. Nevertheless, Somesh, I'll start with basic questions. The biggest question any newcomer is asking, how many hours to study? कितने घंटे पढ़ना है? तो पहले तो आप हमें बताओ कि आप कितने घंटे पढ़ते थे?
First thing I'll tell you sir, and which you will agree also कि ये गलत question है. कितने घंटे पढ़ना है? This is not the right question to ask. What you should ask yourself is how much I should cover in the day, and you should plan the night before and what I want to study the next day. Otherwise क्या होता है सुबह आप काफ़ी टाइम वेस्ट करते हैं बस ये सोचने में. Right. Then if you finish that, even if it is 2 hours per day, then that's fine. You should be happy with it. Okay. तो मेरे लिए तो मैं तो कहूँगा ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा 4-5 घंटे एक दिन में पढ़ेगा.
Right. मतलब मेरा एक्सपीरियंस भी ऐसा ही था कि मोस्टली इफ यू आर एबल टू गेट 6 to 8 hours ऑफ गुड स्टडी consistently, see, I think closer to the exam maybe 10 hours, 12 hours हो जाएगा. So that's on that. Another question which everybody is bothered is how to make notes. You know, where to make notes from. Notes बनाना क्या है? मतलब what exactly to write in it. So if you can tell us about how you used to make notes and what was your thought process.
Sir, I think note making is very important with the perspective that you can revise the subjects very quickly. But I also made the point that if you make too many notes, then it becomes a burden. Then you don't go back to the notes, which defeats the point of making
Correct.
notes. So what I did was that there were some difficult topics for which I need multiple revisions, for which I made notes. For other things which were very easy to learn, I just highlighted in the book itself so that I can and mostly I read it from PDF, so I could search it and revise it again and again. So note making was very limited, but whatever I made sure that it go back to it.
Right. So can we just have a look at your notes you're showing me?
This is for ethics. If the camera is also. So for example, you can see this is note for emotional intelligence, and I always made note of just the keywords, and you have to have clear idea about the keywords, otherwise this will not be useful for anyone. And you can see for citizens charter, just the keywords smart. What is standard service delivery? That is smart. Is for a specific like that.
So I understand these are the topics in which you thought that you need more and more
revision.
Okay. And the other thing you said that you used to read mostly on PDFs.
Yes.
So you did not actually follow too many books or something. So how do you get those PDFs?
Sir, nowadays online resources so many. Just Google whatever you want to know, and you get some good resources. But you have to be very cautious about the sources. Sometimes you might get to non-authentic sources which may mislead you. So you have to filter that out. Otherwise, many books are available in PDF forms, which you can download. And it becomes easier because if you have physical books for me at least, then you want to go back to some specific topic, you have to look throughout the book.
Correct. Here you can just search.
Control F.
Correct, right. Another question which even I am curious about and others have asked is that you have a graduation background in microbiology, but you chose your option as geography.
Right.
So if you can take us through that journey of how you landed in geography.
Right. So choosing optional was one of the field where I made a mistake in the first year. So this was my second attempt, and in the first attempt I chose zoology because for multiple reasons. One of the things was that my background is in microbiology, and so there was some kind of emotional attachment to the subject.
Correct.
And also the fact that I wanted some kind of backup. So I thought if I write UGC net, the coaching will be useful for me. But the mistake I made was that I did not go through the old questions and through the syllabus of zoology. So when I started coaching and invested some amount of money and a month of my time, I realized that हमसे ना हो पाएगा.
नहीं, एक महीने में realize हो गया बहुत अच्छी चीज़ है.
And I also made sure that I don't invest. I've already invested my money. I don't invest my time also.
Right.
Double loss. So I dropped out of it, and then I looked at the syllabus of different topics. I also knew that I didn't have the luxury to opt for another coaching. So So I thought that I should choose a subject which I can do by myself. Now, political science and all these subjects are not are completely new to us because we are from science background. But geography is something we have studied in the high school, and I also thought I was good at it. That is locating maps and everything. So I chose that.
And I'll just clarify that he's prepared on his own his entire optional geography. So we'll come to geography optional slightly later. And also that it was his second attempt, as he clarified. In the first attempt, if I'm not wrong, he would not clear the prelims. And in second attempt, he got rank 34. So when it works, it works. Okay, another question that some people wanted to know is regarding the revision. Because it's such a long drawn process. जो आज पढ़ा वो कल भी भूल जाता है. तो did you have something in your mind consciously that you have to keep revising, and like at how many intervals, or before the exam, what was your plan like?
So revision is the key to success.
Correct.
But a lot of people actually follow very systematic process of like 7 days and then 1 month. But I could not do that because it became the cycle. With each cycle the burden increases. Right. So my strategy was that I would highlight the key portions in my PDF, and if I'm solving questions of particular topic and I realize that this needs more clarification concept-wise, then I went back to that chapter and revised it. So that minimized my burden also, and also made it more helpful.
Okay. And immediately before the exam, like you plan to go through everything again, or?
Before the prelims, so you solve the question papers as far as you can, and that close. Before the mains, what I actually did, I made notes of key words and key points and some data and some figures to quote that. Otherwise, the general idea you already get by reading so many different sources. So that was nice. Okay.
Just coming back to that notes making. Another issue is this newspaper and making notes from the newspaper. So how did you deal with that? I believe you did not make any notes from newspaper, right? So all the issues that used to happen, right? कुछ भी जो भी हुआ, how would you capture that for exam purposes? You take some other material from the market, or?
No, I generally avoided the market because there's a rainbow of books and you get tempted to buy them. Then it just decorates the cabinet. So what I did for note making, you were saying?
Current affairs.
For current affairs, sorry, please. So the newspaper, actually to be honest, I haven't read newspaper for the last 1.5 years. So current affairs is generally covered by the different coaching material that come out. You don't need to do it daily, but you must read the newspaper because it improves your language. Otherwise, note making, if you make notes from newspaper every day, then it becomes so heavy that you don't invest your time also.
So still, just for the clarity of our people who are listening to us, how did you manage current affairs then? Right. You did not focus too much on newspaper. Then how did you cover it up?
I had bought from one of the coaching institutes. I had bought this monthly current affairs for 1 year, and I made multiple revisions of it. So in Varanasi, I was totally out of. So I went to Varanasi for prelims preparation, and during that time I was totally cut off from current affairs.
Okay.
When I came back, I realized.
So you captured the whole last 1 year.
In just between the prelims and mains, I read that entire year thing and multiple revisions.
Okay, alright. And just a quick question on how it went for you in the main exam. How many questions you used to attempt? What was your strategy that you should finish the paper or first take up some questions? And how did you go about that?
So during my mains test series, I realized that time was not an issue for me.
Okay.
And if I knew all the answers, then I would certainly complete it. But the questions this time came in such a manner that in every paper, 1 or 2 questions will be out of blue.
Correct.
Many will agree with me, Mac
Bride. So you don't even remember the question now.
So realize that. So these kind of questions were there in every paper, and
correct.
You have to leave that out. So otherwise, I attempted 18 to 19 questions in almost every topic.
So pretty much your target was to finish it all.
In optional, of course, I had to leave almost 37 marks because of the
paper 1.
In the paper 1.
Because you had not finished.
Covered every topic.
Right. And that's why you got little less marks also. Okay. And in overall, in general, for answers of GSE specifically. Was there a conscious approach how to write the answer, that theoretical plus bring some example, or it was a free flow for you?
So when I read the question, some points were already cropped up in my mind.
Correct.
And I made mental note of it. The general structure was that you have to give an introduction which hits the point right away.
Correct.
And then you give the body which should contain, if it is feasible, current affairs, some example from current affairs or from the history. And then the conclusion should be more, just not for the sake of it, but more substantial. So that was the general pattern. Otherwise, like some people say you should write in points, but I thought that made it artificial.
Correct.
I went through a thought process.
Not every question can be written as a point. So if there is, like, say they are asking comparison or something, maybe you can write points.
Then you can make.
But otherwise, it's supposed to be essay type questions.
Exactly.
So it's fine. Okay, good. Now we'll take up the areas of the mains exam and just quickly cover them. So first thing is essay. We've got like really out of the world marks, 164 out of 250. So that's like really big, and I have never seen anybody get this many marks, at least in the new pattern of this examination. So first question is, how did you choose the topic? Which topic I should write on?
So one very interesting thing happened with me is that I practiced just one essay throughout my preparation plan, and coincidentally one of the topics was very similar. So I have put it on my blog, ias34.com. The sample essay that I have read, I have written, that was there. And the topic was consumption and environment. Consumerism and environment. And similar topic of need, breed, and how it spoils the breed. Need, breed, and breed it came. And I wrote that. I had some quotations already prepared. So I am someone who did not believe in quotations till 2 days ahead of the exam. And then I realized, since I haven't done anything for the essay, I should do something, and I could at least just
take up quotations.
So I made some 50-60 list of quotations.
So actually it was kind of Almighty's grace that you prepared and it just came. So that was a good thing. Okay. And in terms of writing the essay, I mean, we will publicize your the blog, but if you can still tell us, like, how would you suggest somebody writing essay?
So there are two ways of approach. One is that most of the coaching institutes tell you, I didn't take any coaching, but what I hear from my friends is that you have to have this introduction, and then this dimension, that dimension, that dimension. So, and then at the end of it, you put a conclusion and try to put in quotations as many as you can. But what I realized that it makes it very artificial. It might be a good strategy to get an average marks, not very low, not too high. But in another approach is writer's flow. Since I used to blog since 2011, I had a very successful blog on Indian football.
Right.
I had this flow of writing. I could write.
It's a natural
flow. So I stuck to that because that gives the best of me can do. So, but I had quotations also prepared. I gave them, and then my general structure was to analyze whatever the topic is given, and then go to the history or geography of it if there is a problem. Come to the world context and then the Indian context if applicable, and then you must provide solutions, because that's where your alternative will come out. For example, in the need, breed, and breed essay, so you have to also understand the core idea of it is sustainability.
Correct.
And I had this idea in my mind that we have so many indexes for poverty, for the minimum standard of living, but we don't have an optimum standard of living, which would act as a moral force for people who spend, live the luxurious life.
Right.
So I gave that idea, and I think it worked.
I think that's a very good thought and a suggestion. But very interestingly, one of his friends, who's my colleague as well, Shashi Prakash Singh, will interview him next. He told me he wrote nearly 150 essays, and he is the one who wrote only one essay. So you've got all varieties of people. I mean, that's the message. I think you would also agree that all of us have to ultimately figure out our own paths. So that's a very interesting thing to know.
And I think Shashi Prakash is about 162 or something.
He's also got very, very high marks. So it's actually comparable, definitely. So both approaches work for them. In terms of GS paper 4, there is one issue which is always regarding case studies. So how did you manage that part?
Case study, see the good thing about case study is that it fetches you a lot of marks, and there are only a few types of case studies that can come. So if you write some case studies already, then they can't think of new topics. There will be some, the problems are the same.
So what's the source for the initiate, like somebody who's just initiating their studies? So is there a source you would recommend?
Since I did not follow any source apart from the main test series that I took and the material that was provided.
Okay.
And I got a good idea from that.
Okay.
So the general structure. Okay. You identify the stakeholders and the issues involved, the issues involved, and then you give the solutions to whatever the demand is.
And while we are on that, how important do you think is to actually join a test series that actually go in a structured manner of taking, let's say, 10 tests or something? Or if somebody just thinks they will write on their own?
I think test series is helpful in many ways. One is that you get to understand your own speed and power, the capacity to write.
Okay.
You improve consistently your time management.
Right.
Content is improved, and you go in a more focused manner. You can cover some sections in more focused manner. So in that way, it helps.
Okay. And then in paper 2, like most of the people, you've got less marks, at least compared to other papers also. You got 86. Have you thought why?
I have thought and I have never come to any answer.
Never good answer. And that's pretty much the pattern we see everywhere. And I believe it's mostly to do with, because it's the maximum component of current issues and everything is very, very dynamic. Did you attempt this paper completely? Paper 2?
I think either 19 questions or 19 and a half. Like
okay. So if I ask you, like, could you have improved something in that?
I have no idea. I thought I wrote really well.
Okay. So, okay, that's fine. And this in paper 1, there's this area art and culture, which is another big pain for the aspirants. कि पढ़े कहाँ से? और पढ़ भी ले तो जो पूछते हैं, especially in prelims. Many of like this year's prelims also, there are many questions like this Kakatiya.
Right.
So, what was your strategy?
So in 2015 there was a suddenly carpet bombing of current questions from culture, art and culture.
Yes.
And that was the time when we wasted a lot of time preparing for art and culture. Some people downloaded entire CSE website and printed it in a book form, and I also was in that crowd. And that turned out to be not so the cost effective in terms of time.
Right.
So I would say limit your sources, because some questions will be out of the blue and you never know, you never prepare for that. So my sources were the 11th NCERT book for art and culture. Then Tamil Nadu State Board Class 11 book is really good. Even the mains question comes from that. So these two sources should be followed. Apart from that, I think current affairs can be.
Okay. Fine. So now coming to your optional, because you prepared on your own, I think that's a very commendable thing. And many of our followers, they have also asked this, that which are the books you would recommend? So that I believe is on the blog.
It's on the blog. So I have just listed 6 core books for geography, and I would also ask you to be cautious, because it was not a comprehensive preparation. I prepared it for the exam point of view, and I had to take the risk of leaving out some topics.
Right.
So if you want to follow that path, you can always visit my blog and get the list of books.
Right. And I don't know much about the geography option myself, but there have been some consistent queries regarding paper 2, and especially the dynamic portion of geography. So, and you got really good marks in paper 2, 160. So, was this something you consciously captured?
So, the good thing and bad thing of paper 2 is that it's based on GS. And what you have to be cautious about is that it doesn't become a GS answer.
Right.
So there are multiple ways to do that. So in preparation phase, what you have to do is you have to read the current affairs and the general studies with a geographical perspective in mind. For example, if you're reading Sagar Mala project, you know that this can come in the Indian geography part. So you read with that perspective, and you must have practiced the maps very clearly, because you can put maps everywhere and it improves your answer. The the another thing that I did with it is that in paper 1 there are the theories of geography, which is the core geographical subject.
Okay.
If you use theories in paper 2, that improves your answer because the examiner now knows that you are not just limited to your general studies.
Correct.
For example, if there is a question about how the textile industry is distributed all over India, then you use the location models, different location theory.
Okay.
That improves your answer.
Alright. Okay. And on the same line, actually, another question was that did you do much writing practice for geography?
So I took a test series because I panicked, and I wrote only 4 tests. Apart from that, I used to write mental answers. Like,
You used to think
what do you
mentally,
think the structure and the diagram I used to practice.
Okay.
From NCERT books, from DC Leon or from Surinder Singh. So this diagram should be very clear, and you must understand why the diagram is made in the way that it's made. And that improves because you put it wherever and improve that.
So I think what I gather from talking to you is that there's one approach which was not your approach, which generally everybody talks about is घिसने वाला approach.
हाँ.
कि आंसर लिख रहे हैं, किताब पे किताब पढ़ रहे हैं. So instead of that, you perhaps took a very smart approach of how to use the time in the best manner.
Yes. And enjoy it.
And enjoy it also, because I think books make it boring, and then it's like it also sometimes it's a fear factor कि इतना सारा पढ़ना है. Right. Okay. And interview is another thing. 195, I think this year is a mind-blowing score. It's quite above average. So if you can tell us something about that, in the sense, what do you think worked for you, and what should a general person do who is going for an interview?
So I think what worked for me was first thing was meeting you because that reaffirmed my faith.
That's good to know. It worked for somebody.
That reaffirmed my faith in knowing that not having any strategy is a good strategy for the interview. Because I realized that it's not a question answer session in the way that they are testing your knowledge. What they are testing is whether you are able to handle the pressure of the interview that you face. For me, what worked is that I already, so in TIFR I had good exposure with Nobel laureates and we used to ask the questions to them. So I did not have the fear of facing someone who is at a higher position than me. The other thing was that I did not have this mentality that if I give an answer which is not sufficient, they would deduct my marks or something. I did not bother about marks in the interview. What I focused on that I was giving a good answer, I was giving diplomatic answer wherever required. So you can venture in the grey area where you cannot have a yes or no answer. And I made them feel that I was relaxed. For example, even though I didn't feel thirsty, I took a break and had water. So that the message should go that you are able to handle the pressure of the interview also.
We are having a conversation.
Yes.
Like how we are talking now, that's
Yes.
the interview.
Yes, exactly. And if it reaches an intellectual level of discussion, it's a best thing.
Right. Great. And so that was on the interview thing. In general, again coming back to the general ideas, somebody who's just starting to prepare, who's perhaps just chosen the optional, just joined the classes or have just reading on their own, what are the few things that you'll tell them? Because the exam is still 1 year away and interview is 2 years away, so their entire process is at least 2 years long. So what are the few things you would like to tell them from your experience?
I think multiple things. One is that don't have this rigid idea that I must clear it in the first attempt, because you never know. I mean, if I had cleared prelims, I could have been the first attempt. Right, but you didn't. And then if you have this rigid idea that I want to.
And actually nowadays every topper is the same kind of a story.
Yes, third or fourth attempt. So that is one thing. Second is that don't get overwhelmed by the syllabus that is, because mostly once you finish the core textbook, that is NCERT and some specialized books, then you realize that the pressure drops significantly, because you start understanding whatever is in the news, whatever is in the discussion, rather than the TV. Then you start enjoying the process. So don't get overwhelmed by the syllabus, and have a long-term plan. If you don't have a daily plan, at least have a weekly or monthly plan, or a general plan for the year of how you are going to treat when are you going to treat the NCERT, when are you going to start the options, when are you going to take up the test series. This should be there in mind, but don't get upset that you are not sticking to the plan, because sometimes it doesn't happen.
Okay. And I would like to just tell everybody that he used to stay in his own room to study. He did not go to any other glamorous libraries, which is a misnomer. They're not libraries, they're just reading rooms. And I would request our friend, who is the cinematographer today, Karan, to show us his room quickly and how he used to study. If you can tell us, Somesh.
So if you show so this was my bed without any bed cover throughout the evening, and I used to have a laptop. This is not my laptop. I put it in my so I sent it home. I had a Dell Inspiron of 7 years old, and so most of my studies was on that. And in that corner, I used to keep all the books and notes and whatever the things were. That is not here anymore. So this was my work area, and for the entire year I was here. So this was our bedroom. We were 6 people sleeping in it. And sometimes I had to move out because other people get disturbed. So then I used to read in that hall.
But I believe your friends have very good support
Very
system.
good, very good. So this is the hall area where I used to prepare geography mostly because I used to read that at night.
So I think that pretty much answered the questions we all had. But his blog is always there, is34.com. So I'm sure you will be able to reach him, or you can contact me. We will reach him. So I would really like to thank Karan first, because he took out the time. He has been a really obedient student, and
Yeah,
this
most
is one
welcome.
of his hobbies. So thank you, Karan, and thank you, Somesh. All the best. I'm sure you will do great in the service, and we should be hoping to see more of you with the service and your passion. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you.